Heracles was a hero. He was strong and brave. He had to be. Heracles had to complete 12 labours. These were dangerous tasks. His cousin, King Eurystheus, gave him these labours. For his 8th labour, Heracles had to capture 4 wild mares. These were not ordinary horses. These belonged to King Diomedes of Thrace. They were monstrous and deadly. Heracles knew this would be a tough task, but he never backed down from a challenge. He gathered his weapons. Then Heracles set sail for Thrace. He was determined to succeed. He would bring the mares to King Eurystheus. Nothing would stop him. King Diomedes was a cruel king. He was feared by his people. He was also feared by his enemies. Diomedes had 4 monstrous mares, Podargos the swift, Lampon the shining, Xanthos the yellow, and Deianos the terrible. They were as wild and as cruel as their master. The mares were carnivorous. They ate meat. Diomedes fed the mares human flesh. He threw strangers and prisoners to the beasts. Heracles knew about Diomedes' cruelty. He knew these mares were dangerous, but Heracles was not afraid. He would defeat Diomedes. He would capture the mares. Heracles reached Thrace. He could hear the mares. They were stomping and snorting. He could smell their foul breath. It stank of death. Heracles knew he had to be careful. He hid in the tall reeds by the water. He watched as Diomedes fed a prisoner to the beasts. The mares tore the poor man apart with their sharp teeth. Heracles felt a chill. These horses were more terrifying up close. Their eyes glowed red. Their manes were made of snakes. Heracles knew he had to be smart. He couldn't overpower them. He needed a plan, and fast. Heracles came up with a plan. He needed to separate the mares from Diomedes. He crept closer to the stables. He made sure no one saw him. Heracles found his friend, Abderus. Abderus was a skilled charioteer. He was also incredibly brave. He agreed to help Heracles. Heracles snuck into the stables. He used his incredible strength. He broke the chains that held the mares. The mares were loose. The mares were confused. They were free. Heracles herded the mares toward the beach. Then he waited for Diomedes. Diomedes heard the commotion. The air was thick with the sounds of clashing metal and the cries of warriors. He turned his head sharply, his eyes narrowing as he tried to make sense of the chaos unfolding around him. He saw Heracles with his mares. He was furious. The sight of the legendary hero with his prized mares ignited a fire within him. His heart pounded in his chest and his grip tightened around the hilt of his sword. Diomedes grabbed his sword and charged at Heracles. His feet pounded the earth as he closed the distance between them, his mind focused solely on reclaiming what was his. The battlefield seemed to blur around him as he honed in on his target. "You dare steal from me, thief!" Diomedes roared. His voice echoed across the battlefield, a thunderous declaration of his rage and determination. He could feel the eyes of other warriors upon him, but he paid them no mind. "You will pay with your life." Heracles stood his ground. The hero's eyes were steely, his muscles tensed and ready for the impending clash. He knew this confrontation was inevitable, and he was prepared to face it head-on. "These beasts belong in the underworld, Diomedes," he yelled back. His voice was filled with conviction, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. Heracles believed in his mission, and he would not be swayed. "Your reign of terror ends today." The words hung in the air, a promise of retribution. Heracles' stance was unwavering, his eyes locked onto Diomedes with an intensity that spoke of his resolve. Diomedes swung his sword, but Heracles dodged it easily. The hero's movements were fluid, almost effortless, as he sidestepped the attack. Diomedes' frustration grew with each missed strike. He swung his club, and it connected with Diomedes' armor, knocking him off his feet. The impact was powerful, sending Diomedes sprawling to the ground. Pain shot through his body, but he refused to give in. Heracles stood over him, pointing his club at Diomedes' throat. The hero's expression was one of grim determination, his eyes never leaving his fallen opponent. He knew the battle was won, but he needed to ensure it was over. "It is over, Diomedes," Heracles growled. His voice was low and menacing, a final warning to his adversary. The weight of his words was undeniable, and Diomedes knew he had no choice but to concede. "Surrender your weapons, and I will spare your life." The offer was clear, a chance for Diomedes to save himself from certain death. The battlefield fell silent as the two warriors locked eyes, the outcome of their struggle hanging in the balance. Section 6. Diomedes meets his end. Diomedes laughed, his voice echoing through the ancient halls, filled with arrogance and disdain. "You think you have won, little hero?" he spat, his eyes blazing with fury and contempt. His voice dripped with venom, each word a dagger aimed at Heracles' resolve. "My mares will tear you limb from limb." He whistled sharply, a piercing sound that cut through the tension like a knife. The mares heard their master, their ears twitching at the familiar call. They were fierce, untamed beasts, bred for destruction. They turned towards Heracles, their eyes burning with a wild, unquenchable fire. They charged with a ferocity that could shake the earth itself. But Heracles was ready, his mind calm and focused. He had a secret weapon, one that Diomedes could never have anticipated. He pulled out a horn filled with a powerful sleeping potion, a concoction of ancient magic and wisdom. He blew it towards the oncoming mares. The potion worked instantly, its mystical smoke enveloping the charging beasts. The mares stopped in their tracks, their wild energy dissipating as the potion took hold. They swayed on their feet, their eyes drooping, the fire in their gaze extinguished by the powerful potion. They fell into a deep sleep, their bodies collapsing to the ground in a peaceful slumber. Diomedes stared in disbelief, his confidence shattered. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and astonishment. Heracles turned to face him, his face grim and resolute, his eyes reflecting the weight of his mission. "Your reign of terror is over," he said coldly, his voice carrying the finality of a judge delivering a sentence. And with that, Heracles struck, his blows swift and decisive, ending Diomedes' tyranny once and for all. The hero stood tall, victorious, as the echoes of the battle faded into silence. Section 7. Tragedy strikes. Heracles had defeated Diomedes, he had captured the mares. But his victory was bittersweet. Heracles felt a chill in his gut. He looked around for Abderus. "Abderus!" he called. "Where are you?" There was no answer. Heracles ran back to the stables. He searched frantically, and then he saw it. Abderus was lying on the ground. He was dead. The mares had trampled him. Heracles fell to his knees. He felt a wave of grief wash over him. He had been so close to saving his friend. He had been too late. Section 8. A Friend Remembered. Heracles buried Abderus, his loyal companion and trusted friend, with a heavy heart. The bond they shared was forged in the heat of battle and strengthened by countless adventures. He built a pyre by the sea, choosing the location carefully. The sea, with its endless horizon, seemed a fitting place for a warrior's final journey. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was a solemn symphony, a tribute to Abderus's bravery. He placed Abderus's body upon it with great care, ensuring that his friend would be honoured in death as he was in life. He set it alight, the flames dancing and flickering, a symbol of the spirit that once burned so brightly within Abderus. Heracles watched as the flames consumed the pyre, the heat and light reflecting in his eyes. He stood there, a silent sentinel, as memories of their shared battles and victories flooded his mind. He thought about his friend, the laughter they shared, the challenges they overcame together. Abderus was more than a comrade. He was a brother in arms, a confidant, and a source of unwavering support. He thought about his own strength, the immense power that coursed through his veins. It was a gift, but also a burden. He wondered if he had done enough to protect those he cared about, if his strength had been used wisely. He thought about how easily it could be used for good or evil. The line between heroism and tyranny was thin, and Heracles was acutely aware of the responsibility that came with his power. When the flames died down, Heracles collected the ashes with reverence. Each handful of ash was a reminder of the man who had stood by his side, a warrior who had given everything for the cause they believed in. He placed them in a golden urn, a vessel worthy of a hero. The urn was not just a container, it was a symbol of honour, a testament to Abderus's valour and sacrifice. He would take the urn back to Mycenae, a journey that would be both a physical and emotional trial. Each step would be a reminder of the loss he had suffered, but also of the duty he had to fulfill. He would give it to Abderus's family, offering them not just the ashes but the stories of their son's bravery. He would share the tales of Abderus's courage, his unwavering spirit, and his ultimate sacrifice. He would tell them how bravely Abderus had fought, how he had faced danger without flinching and how his actions had saved many lives. His bravery would be remembered not just by his family, but by all who heard his story. He would tell them how he died a hero's death, a death that was not in vain. Abderus's legacy would live on, inspiring future generations to act with courage and honour just as he had. Section 9. Onward to the next labour. Heracles had captured the man-eating mares. He had defeated the cruel King Diomedes, but it had cost him dearly. He set sail for Mycenae. He took the mares with him. They were still drowsy from the potion. He would deliver them to Eurystheus. He would complete his 8th labour. Then he would continue on his journey. There were more tasks to complete, more dangers to face. Heracles looked out at the endless ocean. He knew he could face whatever came his way. He was Heracles, and he was the strongest man in the world.